unanswered questions about Jason Voorhees.
What is bro doing? Is he making a creature out of cheese puffs? This dude is bizarre. Maybe he is a dead fuck, but he's also my spirit animal.
Number 1.
Did Tommy and Trish accidentally cause this massacre? One thing I absolutely love about this franchise is the blink and you miss it moments, like this one here. As you can see, as Jason escapes the morgue, kills the hitchhiker and makes his way back to wherever he's going, he actually stumbles upon Trish and Tommy while they broke down. We can see clearly that this is Jason. Notice the boots, notice the pants. Rob is wearing nothing even close to that. That being said, I personally think that Jason witnessed this event of them being broke down, Rob coming to the rescue, and then followed them to the Jarvis residence, where he eventually started his massacre. If they would have never been there, I honestly think Jason just would have been about his way. And truth be told, who knows where Jason was going to go before he saw Tommy and Trish? Is he making his way back to Camp Crystal Lake? Is he making his way back to Packanack? Is he trying to make his way back to Higgins Haven? I mean, we know that the shrine was found, so that's no longer an option for Jason. So in my last video when I covered part 3, I personally believe that Jason was going to take that barn and make it his new home. I do feel like this whole thing is just a side mission, or it was an impulse just to try to kill people. It's a very interesting thought to see what would happen if Jason never observed them right then and there. I feel like it's inevitable that Jason would have found Rob and they would have had some kind of showdown, which Rob would have got killed anyway because he was searching for Jason. And Jason would have found him in the wild. I mean, that's his territory. Anywhere around this lake is his territory, basically. This being 4 movies in, we know Jason has some kind of objective each movie. But I don't know what his objective is in this movie. Think about it. Again, he escapes from the morgue, kills the hitchhiker, he sees Tommy and Trish and Rob, follows them to the Jarvis residence where the kids are next door, and the massacre happens. If that wasn't there, would this massacre still happen? I feel like yes, eventually, but surely not that same day. So what do you think? Did Tommy and Trish accidentally start this massacre?
Number 2.
Did Jason visit his mother's grave? Now we know that this is the only time in the franchise we actually see Pamela Voorhees' grave. It's a nice nod to the original. And in case you forgot all these questions, we can't break the fourth wall of the film. So we can't search for answers in continuity errors, fucked up writing, deleted scenes, novelizations, bad continuity, none of that. So we know Jason was in the area around his mother's grave, because when he kills the hitchhiker, the grave's right there. Now I only wish we knew where this grave was exactly. Is it coincidence Jason passed her grave, trying to find his way back to where he was going? Surely not, right? That also makes me believe that Jason has a really good insight about Camp Crystal Lake and the surrounding areas. Because not only did he know Camp Crystal Lake very well, he knew Packanack well, naturally, because that borders Camp Crystal Lake. That also doesn't include him going out of his way to find Alice. But then he found his way to Higgins Haven. But to go all the way to the hospital morgue, kill Axel and the girl, and find his way back to the lake that the Jarvis residence is on. Jason knows his way home. Jason knows this area very well. And that kind of bleeds into my idea about part 2 and 3, that this is not the first time Jason has left home, aka the property line of Camp Crystal Lake. So in this very bizarre instance, did Jason stop and see his mother's grave, to pay his respects, to pay his love to his mother, right before seeing Tommy and Trish? Do you think he even knew that that was Pamela's grave? I would imagine Jason would be illiterate, but by no means is Jason a dumbass. He's proved that. It's amazing how this little scene right here that only runs for a few seconds can spark this idea that Jason might have been paying his respect to his mother. So chat, what do you think? Was he visiting the grave? Or was it just a really very bizarre coincidence?
Number 3.
Was Chris at the same hospital as Jason? I can only assume yes, and I find it really bizarre, Chris becoming a final girl and surviving the massacre at Higgins Haven, that she would be in there in the same building as Jason again when he wakes up and he kills 2 more people. Could you imagine that? If you put yourself in Chris's shoes, she just survived this massacre, right? She thinks it's all over. That's if she hasn't flown over the fucking cuckoo's nest, you know what I'm saying? Judging by this. But waking up that next morning and realizing that this killer came back to life in the same building as you and killed 2 more people and then fled the hospital. Even though this is my favorite Friday film of the whole franchise, to me this is the definitive Friday film, the definitive Jason. This is my ish right here. And there's hardly anything I would change about it. But I do feel like it's a missed opportunity not to play with the idea that Chris and Jason is still in the same building when this occurs. I wouldn't go as far to bring Chris back and have this opening scene again, nothing like that. And not playing with some kind of angle about the weirdness of their fate happening again. You sprinkle in some of that Friday the 13th lore and supernatural elements, I do feel like it's a missed opportunity. I feel like that would have been a hell of an opening. And I mean, why not? The film picks up directly at the 3, even revisiting Higgins Haven. If it was up to me, I would have cut them flashbacks, because that's kind of played out by now, and played with the idea of the Friday the 13th lore and weirdness and supernatural fate and destiny. Because the star of the film in part 3, the final girl, I assume, is in the same hospital as Jason, where he once again kills 2 more people. But if you're going to go back and revisit the crime scene anyway and use that as your opening scene, play with it a little bit more. I mean, isn't it bizarre that all of that happened, but they never crossed paths again? It's amazing. And Chris is very fucking fortunate. That is, again, if she was still at the hospital.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Is Mark Jarvis from part 2 related to the Jarvis family? Now, this franchise is no stranger of recycling names, but it makes me wonder if Mark is related to Trish and Tommy and the mother. I mean, given the obvious last name, we also have some more tie-ins from part 2. The whole point of Rob Dyer's character is because he's looking for his sister Sandra, or more or less to avenge her death. So we already have tie-ins with part 2 and 4. Is it such a stretch to say that Mark Jarvis is also part of the bigger picture in part 2 and his connection? Now, if that is the case, one thing is plausible. He can't be any immediate family, because Trish is very aware about the massacres that has happened in the last few days. This is the clip to prove that.
Jason is a child, right?
But the man that killed your sister is dead.
Jason's body has disappeared from the morgue. 2 people at the hospital are missing. Coincidence?
So she knows about Jason Voorhees and the events at Camp Crystal Lake, Packanack, and Higgins Haven. The only thing she didn't know is that Jason escaped from the morgue. If she already knows about part 2's massacre, she's treating it like an afterthought. So if Mark was related to the Jarvises, they couldn't have been very close. So what do you think? Is Mark related? The connections are there, but do you connect the dots?
Dude, are you 5?
5 inches deep in your mom.
Where did Tommy and Trish go when they left the house? Now, early in the film, the mom tells Tommy to go get a haircut.
Get a haircut, Trish will drive you.
But the problem with that is on their way back, Tommy does not get a haircut. I post 2 pictures right here. That little bastard did not get a haircut. His hair is the same exact length. He gives himself a haircut, his fucked up hairdo, but he ain't go to no barber. He also says something about the party, but if they're going to the party, why did they go home?
Can we slow down a little? The party's gonna go on all night.
Tommy wasn't going to be allowed over there anyway. Trish maybe. And they did have some car trouble, so maybe they went into town for some car parts. It's just a very odd gap. After Rob leaves, they're just gone. And they show back up after their mother gets killed. So where do they go? What do they do? Why does this motherfucker have like 9 lollipops in his mouth? Maybe he got that bypass cord for his video game.
Why don't you try killing a few more up in your room?
I need a bypass patch cord.
Number 6.
Where did the twins come from? The first time we see Tina and Terry, we see them roll up on bikes and introduce themselves to the group. But it makes me wonder, where did they come from? Now, this is a big plot hole in the writing, but again, we can't break the 4th wall. We can't blame the writing. If we're stuck inside this universe and have to explain this within the film itself, I'm having a hard time coming up with an answer. So let's break this down. I can only assume they're vacationing nearby somewhere. But the reason that interests me is they have to know about the massacres that just happened. Because Trish knows, we proved that earlier in the video when she's talking to Rob, and I try to visualize all the areas around Camp Crystal Lake. So you have Camp Crystal Lake, you have Packanack that borders it. I can only assume Higgins Haven after that, and then the Jarvis residence. So how much more property is there around this lake? How big is this lake? Where could they possibly be staying that we haven't heard about? And to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, but later on in the franchise, I don't think we're introduced to any kind of new property around Camp Crystal Lake. A lot of people might think the twins showing up out of nowhere is just, it is what it is. But if you think about it, they bring that mystery with them. Where the hell did you come from? Where in this universe are you stationed at and vacationing at that Jason hasn't got to already? This has to be a huge lake, because I've been to Camp Nobisco, if you've seen my previous videos, so I know about the size of the real Camp Crystal Lake. But in this universe, it has to be so much bigger. So that means, chat, we're missing a piece of the puzzle. But even if I go with the angle of them being close to Tina and them in part 7, they're at Camp Crystal Lake, on the shore of Camp Crystal Lake. So are people coming back to Camp Crystal Lake this early? That can't be. Because we know from part 2, which is just a few days ago, in the timeline of the film, that nobody is allowed at Camp Crystal Lake. They got to shut down. They even patrol it. We know that from Deputy Winslow. So they can't come from Camp Crystal Lake, can't come from Packanack, can't come from Higgins Haven. They didn't come from the Jarvis residence. So chat, what do you think? Where the hell did these twins come from? Is this really bear country? Not that this is very important to the story, but this is another small tie-in from part 2 that nobody ever talks about. You remember this statement from Paul from part 2?
Among other things, this is bear country. Bears are dangerous.
And when Tommy asks Rob what he's doing, he says this.
What are you hunting for up here?
Bear.
You can't be hunting for bear.
Tommy says you can't be hunting for bear. Why is that? Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. Rob used that as an excuse, and of course he did. But what interests me is why Tommy rebutted his statement. Now hear me out on this. Tommy is no snot-nosed kid. I mean, he's highly intelligent. You gotta give the little man credit. Trish and the mother depend on him to fix the car, to fix the lights.
Can you fix it? I need a screwdriver.
Mom?
I'll go.
Stay here and fix the lights.
While the dad is absent, Tommy is legit the man of the house. His intelligence level is off the chain. Not only with all the attributes I just listed, but to take it a step further, mask making with latex, mechanical mask making, like right here, puppeteering mask. I mean, Tommy is the real deal. He's smart as fuck. So that makes me wonder, is this really bear country? Because if this is bear country, we can kind of gauge the context of how close the Jarvis residence is to Packanack, right? Because if we figure that out, we can also gauge how close the Jarvis residence is to Camp Crystal Lake. Because bear country normally has zones. Normally on a map you have perimeters. If we had some sort of map there, we can try to piece this puzzle together, this mystery together, of everything. Locations around the map, where the twins came from, how far Jason had to go to travel to Packanack, to Higgins Haven, to the Jarvis residence, where the twins are vacationing. So when Tommy says you can't be hunting for bear, why? I mean, this is the middle of summer, right? They're not hibernating. So if they're there, they're there. The only thing I can think of is maybe it's regulation not to, or they're outside of the perimeter of bear country. And if that's the case, then the Jarvis residence is a pretty good distance from the original Camp Crystal Lake. You see what I'm getting at here? And thanks to part 2 and Paul's speech, it gives us just a little bit more context about where everything is. So what do you think? Is this actually bear country or not?
Number 8.
What took so long for Jason to follow Trish? So right after Rob's death, we get to see some bodies. Trish runs into dead fuck after she finds Loverboy in the shower. And as she busts through the window to go back to Tommy, we see Jason rip dead fuck off the door to go and chase after Trish. But what's bizarre about this is that means Jason had to stop what he's doing, stop his chase, go back into the house, grab Rob's body, and throw it through the window. Jason, why? Do they taste better when they're afraid? And to add to this bizarre scenario, we can actually see Rob's being impaled in the head. Now that matters because that's not how he originally died. Jason likes to do this to his victims in this movie. Take dead fuck for instance. Originally he had a corkscrew to the hand, a blade to the face, but then we see him later on hung up at the door. So that's the second body that he mutilated after killing them originally. Another one is the guy in the shower. The guy in the shower is first discovered like this. I'll show the clip right here.
Oh my God!
But then he's later found again by Trish in this position. And you even got one of the twins at the door. So we know Jason loves overkill. But it just piques my interest of why Jason would stop his pursuit of the final girl in the movie just to go back downstairs into the house, grab Rob's body, impale him in the head again, carry him all the way over to the Jarvis residence, and throw him through the window. So why? This is number 9. In this scene right here, what would Jason have done with Tommy? We're finally to the climax of the movie and we know Tommy pulls the trick out of his ass and it works. But in this instance, Jason is curious. He's confused. He's reaching out. This isn't the angry, predatory sense Jason we just had a few minutes ago, chasing after Trish. So it makes me wonder if Trish was somehow incapacitated at the moment. What would have came of Tommy in this instance? And this scene, believe it or not, is actually another small tie-in to part 2, where we deal with Jason's psychology and his mental state. Tommy is basically doing the same thing Jeannie did, playing mind games with Jason. See, in part 2, Jeannie knew to mess with his psyche. And there for a moment, Jason did believe that Jeannie was his mother. And in this film and in this scene, Jason maybe thinks that he's somehow bizarrely staring at himself. This movie has a whole lot of tie-ins to part 2 that I really love. So what would Jason have done? This wasn't an angry Jason. This was a very curious and confused Jason. I don't think he would have hurt Tommy. I think maybe he would eventually, but not in this moment. What's he reaching for? Is he going to rub Tommy's bald head like Buddha? I've stated in my previous videos, I think this is one of the most overlooked scenes in the franchise, in the sense of dealing with Jason's psychology and his mental state. This is, of course, one of the biggest and most well-known. I'm not saying it isn't that, but it's overlooked with all these little connections with part 2 and dealing with Jason's psychology. And Tommy once again playing with Jason's mind state. So I ask you again, chat, what was Jason gonna do to Tommy? And just a little insert here, I really love the chase scene with Trish. I love seeing Jason out in the wild like this. Like the scene where he's having to choose between Tommy and Trish. The doorway scene. I mean, look at Jason right here. I mean, that's scary. You don't see Jason like this a whole lot. Where are you? What happened to Axel's body? And the nurse's body? This again is stemming from this very bizarre situation that Chris and Jason might have been in the same place, but never crossed paths again. But Jason being very out in the public and being able to escape and go back towards Camp Crystal Lake is just an amazing feat by Jason to be able to pull that off. There's been a long enough time that Rob knows about what happened, about Jason escaping.
Jason's body has disappeared from the morgue. 2 people at the hospital are missing.
And about Axel missing and the nurse missing. But my question is, where did Jason hide the bodies? Inside the hospital somewhere? Did he sneak them out? Could Jason be smart enough to shove Axel in one of the morgue's body drawers? That would have made sense. And hell, why not Morgan too? It's very convenient, right? There's already dead bodies in there. Throw 2 more. I guess when it comes to a theory, that would be the best explanation because I don't think they're going to check the morgue body drawers until hours and hours and hours later, right? Probably to the next shift. Or did Jason become big boy and just put fucking Axel here, fucking Morgan here, and carried him out like the badass he is, and not give a fuck about what happens? I could see this Jason doing this because this Jason don't give a damn. This Jason's brutal, he's relentless. I love this version of Jason. But I digress. What do you think happened to the bodies? What's your theory? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for taking part of your day to kick with me. You know I appreciate it. I love you all. Until next time where I see you in part 5, The New Beginning. Adios.